Recently, I was in a meeting in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I was ministering to this couple prophetically. And the young lady was pregnant with a child, and I began to prophesy over this child that it was going to be like a Daniel, and there was an obligation upon this mother and father to raise this child up in the fear of the Lord and in the things of the Lord. But as I was prophesying over the child, it became this prophecy about this entire generation of Daniels that are being born right now in the earth, and it's an obligation for the people of God, and especially their parents, to raise them up in the things of the Lord so that they'll be ready in the moment that they're challenged in the purpose of God, but they'll also be ready to actually literally shape the course of nations. Daniel chapter 1, verse 3, it says this: Then the king instructed Aphinazai, the master of his eunuchs, to bring some of the children of Israel and some of the king's descendants and some of the nobles, young men in whom there was no blemish, but good-looking, gifted in all wisdom, possessing knowledge, and quick to understand, who had the ability to serve in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the language and literature of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed them for a daily provision of the king's delicacies of the wine in which he drank, and 3 years of training, so that at the end of time they might serve before the king. Now from among those of the sons of Judah were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. To the chief of the eunuchs gave the names. He gave Daniel the name Belshazzar, to Hananiah, Shadrach, to Mishael, to Meshach, to Azariah, and Abednego. One of the things that struck me was this, in verse 3 where we began, is that these young men, we don't know exactly how old they were, but they were children, and they're raised up, and obviously the nation of Israel is brought in captivity, and the king wants to feed them something. But because they've been trained properly, the very next verse is this, that Daniel purposes in his heart not to defile himself by what Babylon or Nebuchadnezzar was trying to feed him. And I want to suggest to you that these children were ready for the moment, even though it's a challenging time, obviously, in the nation's history. These young men were ready for the moment because they were children. I want to suggest to you that they were taught properly in the things of the Lord. And I always say this is the greatest time to be alive. And I believe that even though I might not see everything that I'm believing God for, prophesying about in this season in history, I believe that we are blazing the path in this season in history, that we are setting a kingdom culture for generations to come, so that when they are faced with a challenge, when they're faced with eating or defiling them with certain things of this world, that their hearts will be ready and they will have an excellent spirit as it was upon Daniel. So I just bless you today to, no matter what your sphere of influence, recognize that even if you don't have children right now, and if you do have children, especially important to you, that we are setting the pace for a kingdom culture in this season in history. And I believe that if we don't do our job, that when the world system comes to our young people, they will try and feed them something. And if they are not ready in their hearts, if they haven't been trained, instructed, and discipled, they might end up inside that world system. So I bless us in this season in history to set the pace for what God is doing in the earth.